7 o'clock Alaska time. This is Free the People. Welcome. Let's see. Tonight we've got a couple of announcements, and then we have a very special guest tonight.
Hey.
Hey, is that you, Gus?
That's me.
All right. Welcome to the show. I sent out information, and if you've read the email, you'll know that Gus is the one who introduced us to our guest tonight. So Gus is the guest behind the guest. And in a couple of minutes, Gus, it'd be really nice to have you introduce John a little bit and go through how you, what was going on and what he's been working on the last little bit. But and I'll have you introduce him. Our guest is John Myser, M-Y-S-E-R. And John, you're here too, and we can hear you.
Okay, good.
And we had a little bit of a conversation before the show started, but is Stephen here tonight with you, Gus? Do you know?
No, I haven't talked to Stephen in a few days. I haven't had a chance to get him on.
Okay, all right. I was looking forward to that, but we'll get him on sometime soon if we can. Just a couple of announcements here. We're going to change things up a little bit at Free the People. We've had a lot of shows where people are spend a lot of time talking about the issues that they're going through, and we want to continue to be able to do that. But we'll do that after the topic of the show has been exhausted. So tonight we've got special guest and a special topic, and so we want, if we open it up for questions, we want to keep it on the topic that we're discussing and not just bring in, your various issues. We will save that until after we've exhausted the issue, because a lot of times people will come in and kind of hijack the show, and then new people kind of get turned off and leave before they really understand what's going on. So we want to try to avoid losing new people who are coming in. This week, on Saturday night at 6 o'clock at the Cookie Jar in Fairbanks, we're going to meet. The common lawyers are going to meet. So we're inviting everybody to come to that. 6 p.m. Cookie Jar. If you need more information on that, just email me or call me. My email address is
Q&A mode on. Participants may now unmute themselves.
Did you do that? Oh.
Q&A mode on. Participants may now unmute themselves.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Okay. Okay, speaking of being hijacked, it's possible that just happened, but somebody's maybe has control of the board.
No, I'm sorry. I was muted, Maria. That was me.
Okay.
I'm simulcasting on TalkShoe, and I was checking to see if the audio is working. I didn't mean to interfere.
Oh, okay, no problem. No problem, good. All right, it's happened in the past, and I know it's happened on your shows a couple of times too, and so it's good to know what that is.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries, not at all. All right, so yeah, come to the Commoner Club at the Cookie Jar Saturday night. The other thing I want to point people's attention to is that Gus promoted tonight's show on Redress for Dummies, and I sent out that link, and so you have a link directly into his website. That's one of the places where people might want to spend quite a bit of time. There's so much material on there. And so also within that link, some of the material that John's going to be referring to tonight has been posted, I guess. Have you posted that, Gus, in the last
Yeah, I that's why I was late. I was just uploading those documents. To make them easy to find, I put them at the very bottom of the page below the lion. So you'll see Attorney of Record definitions, pages 1 through 4, and then a separate driver's license application, and then the driver's license instructions. So you can follow along on the recording or as John's talking or whatever.
Okay, and then to find that link that you sent out, I sent that out to everybody probably 20 minutes ago, so the last email that they've gotten from me is that link.
Yeah, and if you go to my website, Redress for Dummies, in the left-hand column, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the archives. So it'll be like, this is October 2019, October 16th, 2019. But you'll see October, September, August, July, June, May, all the previous months, and the different posts are all listed there all the way back to 2013. So if you look for today's date, the 16th of October 2019, and you look for John Myser. I think that's the only post I did today. I might have done another one, but that's where you'll find those documents at the bottom of the page. It says tonight, John Myser on Free the People Alaska.
Okay, and before I have you in, John, I just wanted to let people know that this past week I was talking to one of our friends that comes to the common law group, and she mentioned to me, we were talking about specializing, people doing different things and wanting to, kind of specialize in various things, and she told me one of the specialties that one of us needs to have is being a prayer warrior. And so we had a conversation. I said, okay, I will join you and I will be a prayer warrior with you. So what that means, and I said, I'll be the contact person. So any prayer requests that you guys have, if you're in the sound of my voice and you're sincere, just email me your prayer requests, and this group of prayer warriors will start praying for you. Also, if you want to join us, let me know, and we'll include you in that group. With no further ado, Gus, if you would take it away and introduce John a little bit.
Absolutely. John's been a friend of mine for going on 5 years, and about 3 years ago, he called me up and said, hey, I want to run something by you. You got a minute? And I said, sure. And a couple hours later, he had covered a lot of things, and I had probably, put my 2 cents into every aspect of it, because that's what I do. And we sharpen each other up. We talk a lot. We connect a lot on a lot of different levels on health. John's, real healthy eater. He knows a lot about health foods, a healthy lifestyle. The GAPS nutrition plans. So he's very up to speed on common law, health, and a lot of the same stuff that I'm interested in. And so this particular subject that we're talking about tonight, he started talking to me about 3 years ago, and we've talked often about it over the last 3 years, and I'm really excited that he's going to talk to you guys about it tonight. I've been wanting him to record this for a long, long time. And we had this conversation a few days ago, and I asked him, do you want to do a show? Because it'd be kind of cool to get a recording. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, let me call Maria and see if I can get you on the next call. And here we are. John's got a background, Silicon Valley. He's been around. He's got a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. But him and I mostly talk about health and common law. So I'm not going to delay any further. John's got some really awesome stuff to talk about. So go ahead, John.
Well, thank you, Gus, and thank you, Maria. I'm glad to be here with you all tonight, and thank you for lending me your ears. Just a I've been kind of going at trying to figure out what's going on in, society and legal land for over a decade, and I have run down a lot of different paths, trying to find a solution, because I found myself in challenging circumstances and family law court stuff and traffic tickets and all that kind of stuff. And I kept thinking, this just isn't right, what's going on. And so I followed this guru and that guru, a lot of good people that said, hey, I got a solution to what it is. And, try state citizenship or acceptance for value or executor letters or, all this, constitutional, learn the Constitution and try all this different stuff. And, it was just like running down rabbit holes, and I just kept getting lost and never seeing a remedy, never seeing a solution. And I kept going like, after a while, I just said, hey, this stuff isn't working. And I bumped into somebody who was doing something different and said, hey, I'm not going to tell you that I know it, but I'll tell you my path, and you can see what you learn this way. And the essence of the path was just ignore what any other man or woman is saying. And the reason he said that is just, let's assume that we're all deceived. And when you're deceived, you just don't know it. You don't know you're deceived because, you can go out there and you can go to work and, whatever your form of work is, whatever you do, you just don't know it. You've been deceived your entire life. And deception means you just don't know it. You just don't know it. You have no clue that you're deceived. So one of the first things then I said is like, okay, I'm deceived and I don't know it. My mind has been mind controlled, pre-programmed to not see the truth. And I don't even know what the truth is because monkey see, monkey do. My dad was pre-programmed with mind control, so he just passed it on to me, his grandfather to him, great-grandfather, the whole 9 yards. So the situation came up, like, well, how do you get out of this? How do you reprogram a brain that's been mind-controlled? And you don't even know it. But you've got a good brain. Everybody here in this phone call has a good brain. And so how do you begin to reprogram yourself with a brain that's been malprogrammed? And so that's kind of what I began to do in earnest in 2014. And I have been working on it since then. So it's 5+ years. And it's been a slow journey. But it's sort of like this, if you're trying to differentiate the truth from the fake, from the original from the fake. Like if you were to go through and say, I think I've got the original Mona Lisa painting. Well, you wouldn't know it unless you had you'd need the original Mona Lisa that was painted to then put up your painting next to it to determine, if it was fake or not. So you have to get the original, you have to get the source code and then start to bring up the fake to start to differentiate it. So many people were telling me that, you got to try this form of law or that form of law. And I started to find out, I thought, well, how do I even know I've got the original or the source law? And who says who gets to speak jurisdiction or get to speak the law? Jurisdiction coming from the Latin juris, meaning law, and diction, meaning to speak law. Who gets the authority to speak law? So I'm going to start with something that's, that'll start off as something simple, but I want to start with the simple because when you can begin to see the simple and you get a foundation, you can walk away from tonight's call and go, well, I don't have to believe John. I can just see it. That's for sure true. I never thought about it that way before, but I can see it. And now you've got something foundational to begin to build your source of knowledge on. Because the challenge for me was, how do I separate belief versus knowledge?
Hey.
And pardon? So my understanding between belief and knowledge is this. Knowledge is something certain. I don't have to credit it upon the testimony of somebody else. Gus said this, so then I run around building up my knowledge, but I'm always kind of referring back to Gus or Maria or me, John. Doesn't really matter who, but you're always going through a belief. And so we have so much belief in our head that we don't even know the difference between belief and knowledge. So I'd like to begin tonight's call with, starting to do something with just knowledge. So I have a piece of paper in front of me, and a pen. And if you have one, that might help you out, because pictures were one of the things that I began to draw so I could begin to see this more clearly. So if you do, great. If you don't, okay, I'll try and create mind pictures for you, a word picture, so you can see it. So the first thing I wanted to go through is, can you get something out of nothing? Can you get something out of nothing? So if you have nothing, can you then generate something? And when I'm talking with somebody in a dialogue, when I have this conversation, they'll go, no, you can't get something from nothing. That would be magic. You can't get something from nothing. Okay, so an example of that would be, you need a mom and a dad to create a son or a daughter. Sons or daughters just don't magically pop out and self-exist. They come from something else. They come from a mom and dad. So, and that mom and dad, well, they came from their mom and dad, or we might call them grandparents, and then great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, and go all the way back. So I go through and I say, well, okay, in order to have anything here in the world that I find myself in, there must be a something that started to make or create all the rest of these other somethings. So I don't want to get into any arguments with anybody about what we call this, but I just call it the first something. So on my piece of paper, I draw a circle, and I just draw a little line to it, and I call it the first something. So if I have a first something, that first something can generate other somethings. And that first something wasn't generated by something else, because then you'd start to just get, you'd start to get like turtles all the way down. There has to be a first something in order for anything else to exist. So if you look at your piece of paper, if you've got one, you've got a circle drawn over there, and let's just call it the first something. Now some people say, well, okay, are you talking about God? Are you talking about the Creator? Are you talking about Big Bang Theory? I don't really care about the name right now. I'm just going to call it the first something. So I could have a conversation with anybody and be able to work with them on something and get them just to agree to this foundational piece of knowledge. You can't get something out of nothing. So there has to be a first something, and that first something makes all the other somethings. Okay, so then I'll draw a line coming down out of that first something, and I'll just create two little circles, and I'll put an M in one and a D in another, and I'll call that mom and dad. So that first something makes the mom and dad, and that mom and dad, I draw a line beneath that, and I'll, call it a son or a daughter. Now on this part here, I kind of go, well, that just kind of makes sense. I can't get a son or a daughter unless I got a mom or a dad, because a son just doesn't spontaneously exist. It doesn't just pop out of thin air. It comes out of a mom and a dad. And that mom and a dad had to come from somewhere, so it came from the first something. So on that first something, I can call it the maker. The maker makes everything else. I could use the term creator, and that creator creates everything else. Or I could even, I can appease the people who want to say Big Bang, but that Big Bang had to have always existed. It didn't come out of nothing. It had to be something in the beginning. So now that I have this, I go, well, okay, that's just reality. because I can look around here in the creation or on Earth, and I look around and, well, there's all this other stuff. I mean, trees. Trees came from something. They came from a seed. And, well, who made that seed or who made that tree? And I know that, if I have an apple tree, it produces apples, and apples have apple seeds. And if I plant that apple seed, it'll produce another tree. It doesn't produce an orange. It doesn't produce a banana. It produces kind after its kind. So I go, oh, okay, so I see something here. Whatever something is in the creation, it creates something just like it. So now I want to kind of go through and go like, okay, well, what can I extrapolate out of this? So I look at this first something and I go, well, if something makes something else, it would seem to me that that's first something that made something else. Well, it would have to be his. It would have to be its. They would have to actually own it. Because it couldn't be somebody else's because they didn't make it. So that first something would have to own whatever it made. Okay. I think I can rationalize that. I think I can go through in my mind and go, yeah, because if somebody else were to say, no, I own that, you go, wait a minute, how do you own that? You didn't make it. So, okay, so now I got a first principle. Whoever makes it owns it. Okay, so whoever makes it owns it. Well, then if I own it, well, then I probably would be the only one that could make any rules about it. Yes, you can have it. No, you can't. I'll give it to you. Got to give it back. I can sell it. I can break it. I can destroy it. I can do whatever I want with it. And nothing could ever be wrong with what I do with it. Why? Because I made it. I get to make the rules. Nobody else. So whoever makes it owns it. Well, then whoever owns it rules over it. So now I got a really simple thing. Whoever makes it owns it, rules over it, and ruling over it would be, can speak law about it. So now that we have that in place, whoever makes it owns it, rules over it, well, that sort of seems natural, because if I look at a mom and dad and they make Junior, well, the neighbors across the street can't tell Junior, hey, come over here, mow my lawn, go to this school, eat this food, don't eat that food, because mom and dad would walk over to that neighbor and go, hey, what are you doing talking to my kid? That's our kid. We tell him what to do. Why do we get to tell him what to do? Well, we made him. He's ours, or she's ours, and we get to tell him what to do, because that's just right. You didn't make him. I don't tell your kids what to do, so you don't get to tell my kids what to do. Well, if we begin to look at that, you kind of go like, oh, okay, and mom and dad, well, they had a mom and dad, so they're subject to the authority of that mom and dad, and so on going up the tree until you get to that first something. And that first something could be the only one that could rule over anything that we see here in the creation or what's all made, because he made it all. And it wouldn't be right for anybody to rule over anything that it made, this first something, because they made it, he made it, owns it, rules over it. So that would seem to me to be a very foundational piece of knowledge to know. And that would be a very good way to begin to establish jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, who gets to speak law? Well, the only one that could speak law would be the one that made it. So then I can pause here for a second. I go, oh, okay, well then maybe I can see how all man is created equal. One man can't tell another man what to do because that man didn't make, this man. Only a mom and dad can tell their son or daughter what to do. So jurisdiction falls in line of whoever made it, owns it, rules over it. So now I get the idea of like, oh, okay, all man is created equal, except a son or daughter is always under the jurisdiction of their parents, and we're all under the jurisdiction of that first something. And that seems really kind of simple. You can go through and try and talk to any lawyers or whatever, and you start to say, hey, can you please explain jurisdiction to me? Can you explain the law? And they'll just yammer on about inherent jurisdiction or, something that, you get lost. And now this, to me, seems very simple. Whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it, and that would just be reality. So I can look at this drawing that I have, and I go like, oh, okay, that's reality. That's the reality side, because I can kind of look over there, see, touch, taste, smell, and look out here into what's been made in the world, what's existing here in the creation, and everything has a maker. There's nothing that just spontaneously exists. Everything comes from something else. And when something comes from something else, that son or daughter, well, another thing, they didn't have a choice in who their parents were. They don't get to change who their parents were because they had no say in it. They were just made. So that's easy to say where they come from. You can distinguish, that son or daughter by saying, well, who are your parents? Oh, my parents are, Mary and Bill. Mary and Bill are my parents. Oh, okay, so there's Mary and Bill's son. Okay, that seems to be the way to follow, how, and only Mary and Bill can tell the son, Junior, what to do. So now with this little nugget of information and habit, now we've got what I call is just like your foundational piece of knowledge on which to begin to start to figure out what's going on in the world. So now I call this the original, and this is the source piece of knowledge. And now I can go wander over into legal land and take a look at, well, what's going on there? How does legal land work? Where all of a sudden I get an Alaskan judge telling, an Alaskan man or person what to do. How does somebody wearing a robe or a blue uniform or whatever get to tell you what to do? What principle of law is going on? Well, if we begin to look at that over there, we've got, we'll call it United States, or we could call it Canada, or we could call it Germany, or, it doesn't really matter what the name is. But we all imagine a place called America. And America then imagines a place called Alaska or California, Nebraska, what have you. But at the top of this circle, a bunch of people got together and they said, let's go imagine America or United States. Let's just imagine USA. Now, you can't talk to USA, you can't see USA, you can't smell USA, you can't have a conversation with USA. It's just in everybody's imagination. Just like Santa Claus, Tinkerbell, and, the Easter Bunny. It's just something in your imagination. However, in this thing here, we've got 300 million people in USA land, all imagining that United States of America exists. But if you were to roll back the clock, easily, 500 years, and you were to start to say United States of America to the, to the people that were wandering around this dirt here back then, they'd look at you like you were loco. What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're imagining. You've got some little club that you've imagined. Why don't you just call yourself the Trojans? Hi, we're the Trojans, and these are our rules. We're going to create a constitution. We're going to create something. It's only in our imagination, and we write it down on a piece of paper, and then we're going to say what the rules are for our club. So now on the, on the right side of the paper, I'm just going to write a circle up at the top, and I'm going to call it, America, USA. And so what does America make? Well, America makes American men or American corporations. So now I draw a line down from, USA or America, and I write down a little circle there, and I got an American mom and an American dad, and an American mom and an American dad make an American son. So if I've got an American son, well, then it must mean I have an American dad, and I came from America. But you can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't look at it. It's all in our imagination. So it's all fiction, just like Tinkerbell and Bambi and Santa Claus. But boy, is that ever a really strong imagination. We sing pledges of allegiance and sing national anthems and do all this, stuff that really instills a strong sense of that something's really there when there's actually nothing there, except there's just men and women who've been greatly deceived and programmed ever since we were little itty-bitty kids, putting our hands over our heart and learning how to say a pledge of allegiance or singing a national anthem, and start to instill this belief in our head that something was there when it was just imagination. We grew up as little kids believing in Santa Claus at one time, but then as we got older, we realized that was a farce. But here we are running around as adults thinking, we've got to go get constitutional rights and Bill of Rights, and you can't do this, but it's just all imagination. But if I look at it, if America makes Americans, and if I follow that rule of law from the reality side, whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it, well, the fiction America made the fiction American men. So I kind of have a law of reality, but I'm applying it to fictions. So I'm applying the law of reality to fictions, but it governs it in this way and what's going on in our legal system. Excuse me, I had to get a drink of water there. So if I look at that, I go, oh, okay, but I really can't be an American. I really can't be a Minnesotan. I can't be an Alaskan. It's just something in my imagination. I mean, it doesn't, really exist. You see the dirt, you see the land. I heard some of you talking about the snowfall and the storms and stuff. I mean, that's real. But, have you ever really seen Alaska, or is it just the ground where you're at? Or was that ground that you're at really created by that first something? So when I look at this and I go, okay, so now I've got on the left side, I've got reality. The first something makes a mom and dad and makes a son, and jurisdiction or rules of law goes, whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it. And then on the right side of my paper, I've got USA, and you could put in Germany, Canada, Japan. It really doesn't matter because Japan makes Japanese, Germans makes Germans, Canadians make Canadians. It's just all imagination. But Canada will rule over Canadians, and Germany will rule over Germans. And that's kind of the way the game plays, but nobody can really be a German or an American except if you have a piece of paper. So if we were to line up everybody here on the call tonight, I mean, here's a good proof positive, and you were to go like, well, which one is from Missouri, which one's from Alaska, which one's from Minnesota, and you looked at everybody there, nobody could point out, who's who, unless, of course, you had documentation, like a driver's license or a passport. And then you could say, oh, here I am, this is me. I'm the Minnesotan, I'm the Alaskan. But you need a piece of paper to prove that, where in reality, if you wanted to see who was who, and you say, well, whose son is this? Well, if you were to line up the parents, you might be able to, or you might have a really good chance of going, well, geez, that son looks like that mom and dad, or that daughter looks like that mom and dad. Because whatever something makes, they almost always tend to look like whoever made them. So there is a law of likeness. You look like who made you. An apple tree makes other apples, be it a Gala apple or a delicious apple or what have you, or a Granny Smith apple. It looks like, oh, that's a Granny Smith apple tree. So we have so as I look at this, I go, oh, okay. So now if I want to go through and look between, what's real and what's fake, when I go to, I'm going to transition a little bit here to the court stuff. When you walk into court, they always say, state of Minnesota versus John Thomas Myser Jr. Please state your appearances for the record. And the prosecutor will go, "Hi, I'm Jim Smith, and I'm appearing for and on behalf of the state." So we know Jim Smith isn't the state. Why do we know he's not the state? He just told us he's only appearing as the state. So he can't be the state. He's only pretending to be the state. But that's what Jim Smith does, who's going to go animate, personify, bring the state to life. And he's saying, "Hi, I'm pretending to be the state." And then when we go in there, they go, "Oh, state your appearance for the record." And they usually just give us a name, and they say, "Oh, you Mr. Myser?" "Yeah, I'm Mr. Myser." And I don't really know what the word appear means. So I just say, "Yeah, that's me." Well, this next part, I just kind of want to show you exactly how that goes down, because you're never what you appear to be. So I sent out on the call here ahead of time the Minnesota driver's license application. And on the Minnesota driver's license application, you can turn it. You see the front page. And then when you turn over the front page and you look at the back, there's instructions back there. And nobody usually turns over the back page of a driver's license application. They're just in a hurry to get in and get out because they're tired of waiting at DMV. But I flip it over, and it starts to show me three things that are really very interesting. So everybody's taken a vision screening test when they go to get their driver's license, that's for sure. So you take a vision screening test, just a, A-E-I-O-U, so you can, prove that you've got, your eyes are good. But the way that they word it on the back of the driver's license application, they state you must appear in person for a vision screening. Well, that's kind of odd. Why do I have to appear as something if supposedly I am something to then go take a vision screening test? Because our whole life we've been told we're a person. But here, now they're just saying I have to appear in person. Well, why didn't it just say you must take a vision screening test? It doesn't need the word appear in person to do it. But, that's kind of interesting. So I continued to read on that, and I thought, okay, let's go see. The third paragraph down, it states you must present evidence of identity. Now, I always like to ask people this. What word did they leave out? So I'm not going to have Gus answer it because Gus knows the answer. I've done this with Gus. But if you guys were to think about this, guys or gals, and it says you must present evidence of identity. They left out a word on purpose. Your mind has already supplied it. And you don't even know because you're not even sure what it is right now. So if anybody has it and wanted to pipe up and say, hey, I think I know what the word is that they left out, I'll give you a second here. Yep. Pardon?
Is it your?
Absolutely, that's it. Hardly anybody gets it right away. That's great. Your identity. So you must present evidence of your identity.
Exactly. I got it right away. It's not of identity, it's your identity. And anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but everybody thinks that the driver's license application is evidence of their identity. So right here is proof positive. And, I'd love it if one of you guys were to go through and get a driver's license application from your various states and flip it over on the back page and see what it says there. I'd be interested to see if this carries on in other states. I've only been able to look at it here on Minnesota. But so when you bring evidence of an identity, most times when it's, you're going for the very first time to do this, you bring a copy of your birth certificate. You bring a copy of a birth certificate, and because you think that's evidence of your identity, when in fact it's not. It's evidence of an identity, but it's not evidence of your identity. Evidence of your identity means, identity basically means what are you identical to? Where do you come from? Well, you come from your mom and dad. That's your identity. Where do you come from? What do you like? What are you identical to? Well, I got 23 chromosomes of mom. I got 23 chromosomes of dad. That's what I'm identical to. But they asked you to bring evidence of an identity, and that identity is not your own. But you thought it was. But if it's not your identity, well, then I guess that first sentence then begins to make sense, because I can appear as it. I can pretend to be it. Because they're not asking for me to take, well, they're asking me to take the vision screening test, but they're asking me to take the vision screening test pretending to be somebody else. Because they stated it right there. You must appear in person. They didn't say you are a person and you must take a vision screening test. They said you must appear. You must pretend to be a person and then take a vision screening test. So, wow, that's really kind of interesting. So then I go down to the third paragraph from the bottom, and I've highlighted the words, highlighted in yellow there. And it states, and it says, provide an alternate address where you are able to receive mail and service of process. I know, well, that's a kind of a funny word, service of process. You know, I wonder, service of process. Well, service of process is obviously, somebody, they have a process server and they come up and they hand you a piece of paper. So they're handing a piece of paper, but they hand a piece of paper to a certain class of people that are that have a certain responsibility. So I went through and I went to the state law library and I looked up what an attorney of record is. And an attorney of record, I looked into the book Words and Phrases that's published by Westlaw Publishing. And it's like a set, like an Encyclopedia Britannica. There's 30 or 35 or 40. I forgot how many there are right now. But it's a big multi-volume set, and it defines words and phrases. And those words and phrases are definitions. Hello? Are definitions of words that judges have defined in court cases across all states, court cases, and all federal court cases. So they intend to try and define the words so that then they have a definition so they understand what something is. So under the definition of, it's in Book 4 in Words and Phrases, Attorney of Record, and it's on Gus's link here that I had put together for you guys. And Attorney of Record is, they define the behaviors or actions somebody does in order to be considered an attorney of record. And an attorney of record has many different behaviors that they do, but one of them is they're able to receive service of process. So if I'm an attorney of record, everybody knows that an attorney stands in the place or stead of another. The attorney represents himself as somebody else. He's not that somebody else. He's only pretending to be that somebody else. So just like we had a moment ago when we had the prosecutor go in there to appear for and on behalf of the state of Minnesota, well, Jim Smith, that was the name I think I gave him. Jim Smith would be appearing for and on behalf of the state of Minnesota. Well, he's the attorney of record in that particular court case for the state of Minnesota. He's the one pretending, animating, personifying to be the state of Minnesota. And an attorney of record can file pleadings into a case. They're actively involved in the case. They receive notices on the case. They get court orders for the case. They're actively involved in the case. They're doing everything they can to animate the fiction called State of Minnesota. And they're known as the attorney of record. And why are they attorney of their record? Because they're the one appearing or representing themselves as the state of Minnesota. Well, here I was going over there, and they said, state your appearance for the record, John. Well, I didn't know I was pretending to be somebody else. I just thought they were calling me. Hey, John, come here. Are you John Myser? Yeah, I'm John Myser. But what I didn't know is that I was appearing to be somebody else who also happens to be or happens to have the exact same name as me. So I didn't even know that. Oh my God, I've been tricked. So I'm appearing as something else that has the exact same name, the exact same birth date, the exact same address. Well, when I fill out this driver's license application, if you look at the front side, they look for a name, they look for a birth date, and they look for an address. They get 3 traits of mine that are exactly equal to this person called John Myser. I'm appearing as him. It tells me I'm appearing as him. It tells me I must present evidence of an identity, so it's not mine, it's his. So his name is John Myser. His birth date is the same as mine, and he's got the same address as me. And they're telling me that I have to give him an address where I am so I can receive service of process so that I can participate in case he gets activated for some kind of a court case, so that they know who to go call, so that I can come in there and pretend to appear in person for this other individual that's got the same name as me. I thought, holy cow, I didn't know that. And so one of the things that helped me find this was when I began to do this studying of whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it, the source document that I decided to use in my journey was the Bible. And the reason I decided to choose the Bible, because everybody said, well, that's the Word of God. And I thought, well, okay, I don't know if that's true or not, but, if there is a God, if there is something like that, and he's the one that made it all, well, then he'd be the only one that would get to say anything about it all, and it would have to be his word, and if it is, well, that would probably be the gospel truth. And so I'm instructed in that book to go test it, to prove it, to see if the words in there, to see if the scripture in there is true. So the very first line in the Bible says, in the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. Okay, check. I don't know. That seems right. Whatever, he's the first something. Whoever that first something is, he made it all. Okay, check. So that line seems to check out with me. In Genesis 11, it says, God came down from God saw men building a tower up to the heavens, and God came down to look at them and saw men building these towers to the heaven, and he said, oh, look, all the people are one, and they give themselves a name, and now nothing will constrain them from what they imagine to do. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. That's what I just drew on the right side of the page. A bunch of people got together, joined together as one, gave themselves a name. They're calling themselves Americans. It doesn't even exist, but it's in their imagination, and now nothing will constrain them from what they imagine to do. Wow. Check. That seems to be reality, what's going on here. And in fact, if you look at all of our money, it's written in Latin, e pluribus unum, which means out of many, we are one. Well, that's just a bunch of malarkey, because here we are, we're many people on this phone call right now, but I guarantee you we're not one. We're just many individuals, many men and women on this phone call. Doesn't matter. We don't become one because we're all together. But I go, wow, okay, check. That seems to be true. Another check. Okay, this book seems to so far be checking off. Well, then I wanted to check on this last part that I was just sharing with you about, going to court. And this one kind of rang true for me, which was Luke 11:52. And in Luke 11:52, you've got the lawyers who are trying to trick Jesus. They're trying to, catch him in his words. And Jesus suspects what's going on already with these guys. And he's calling out a specific class. He goes, woe unto you lawyers. Now, he didn't say, woe unto you drug dealers. Woe unto you pimps. Woe unto you teachers, you plumbers, you electricians, you handymans, you What? No, he calls out a certain class of people. Woe unto ye lawyers. And then he says, for you take away the key of knowledge. And I kind of thought, wow, I'd like to have a key of knowledge. I wonder what the key of knowledge is that they have that I don't have. Woe unto you lawyers, for you take away the key of knowledge, and ye enter not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered. Well, that's kind of interesting. What do the lawyers do that they don't enter in? And when I enter in, I'm hindered. So let's go back to that prosecutor. We got the prosecutor going, hi, I'm Jim Smith. I'm appearing for and on behalf of the state of Minnesota. So he's creating separation between himself and the state of Minnesota, the fiction that doesn't exist. So he didn't enter in. Check. That's kind of interesting. Check, he didn't enter in. Hi, I'm Jim Smith. I'm appearing or representing myself as the state of Minnesota, but I'm not entering in. I'm just pretending to be the state. So I don't catch the liabilities of the state. I don't get the remuneration of the state. I'm just pretending to be the state, animating it. And then we have us on the other side. We go walking into that courtroom, and they just go, hey, Gus, hey, Maria, hey, John. And I don't realize that there's two Johns. So I just got hindered, and they pulled me in. And now I'm pretending to be something that was created by the fiction called State of Minnesota, and they're treating me as if I'm a Minnesotan. And if Minnesota makes Minnesotans, well, following the law of reality, whatever the fiction makes, the fiction, and it doesn't make anything, but I mean, let's just go with it. Whatever the fiction makes, the fiction owns, the fiction rules. Oh, okay, I got it. So now I've just made an appearance as something. I didn't know I was appearing. I thought the word meant show up. But the lawyers don't tell me, they don't finish the sentence, show up as what? What am I to show up as? Because if you're asking me to make an appearance, if I'm Tom Cruise and I'm going to go play Mission Impossible, well, I can go appear as Ethan. Or if I'm going to, Clint Eastwood, I can go appear as Dirty Harry. But I'm not Dirty Harry and I'm not Ethan. But I suppose if I look back at that driver's license application, if I were, going on stage and they said, hey, Dirty Harry, you got to take a vision screening test. Well, I guess I'd have to go appear as Dirty Harry, and now I can take a vision screening test. And I guess if I'm presenting evidence of an identity, it's not Clint saying, hey, here's my mom and dad. Here's the role I'm playing. I'm playing Dirty Harry. So all of a sudden I go, wow, that part, check, 1152, Luke. That dials it in for me. Woe unto you lawyers, for you take away the key of knowledge being, I have to appear to be something that I'm not. I don't realize that I'm doing it. I don't realize that there's two John Mysers, the real John Myser that mom and dad made, and then the fiction, the person that the state of Minnesota made, that I can only appear to be or represent myself as. Yeah, because a lot of times in court they go, are you representing yourself today? Are you going pro se? Well, yes, Your Honor, I'm representing myself as something else. I can't represent myself as myself because I just am myself. But see, the lawyers are really good with words, and that's the way that they trick and deceive us, because they know that we really don't think about the word appear, and we don't think about the word represent, because we have thought all along that our driver's license was evidence of our identity. Well, in the back of the driver's license application, it's proof positive. It's not my identity, but what it is, it does prove that I am the one, singularly, appearing for and on behalf of this other identity. I'm the attorney of record for the person. I'm not the person. I'm just appearing as him. That's what it says in the first line. So I'm just appearing as him. And that's kind of, what I've begun to figure out. Now, there's a lot more that I can go on with this, but I know, it's probably a good point in time that I can pause and start to address questions, because I think I've been talking for close to 20 minutes plus or so, whatever it is. I don't know. I didn't track it. But I've delivered a lot of information in a very short period of time. And,
Yeah,
I'm open
great.
for
Great. Let's let people have a chance to, just share their thoughts or ask questions. But I'm just going to caution everybody to kind of be brief with your questions.
Hey, Maria.
And let's let John talk. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Before you open it up for questions, John, could you cover one of the things you didn't hit was the sin of origin, and okay. I don't know if you want to get into that before you take questions or not.
Okay, I can do it. I'll add that part there. So the sin of origin. So again, the lawyers, play with us on the words, and we're told it's the original sin, meaning the first sin. The first sin that was committed, as opposed to the sin of origin. Where do you come from? So if you come from mom and dad come from the first something, but all of a sudden now you're wandering over into fiction land and claiming that you're the son of a fiction that was created by a fiction that a bunch of people just joined their hands together as one, and you're creating yourself a new maker, if you will, and you really can't because they've stated it all along, you can only appear as it. Well, then you've created the sin of origin. And, it's not the first sin, but it's a very grave sin because you're saying, I come from a different maker. Now, it's impossible to change your maker, but in your mind, you can be tricked and deceived because I've been tricked and deceived. I've carried a Minnesota driver's license. I've carried a United States passport, and I said, that's me. I said, that's me, that's my identity. And I didn't realize that I was only appearing to be that. So it's really kind of easy, on the birth certificate that was issued at, our parents when they registered us and, put it into the state civil, system. And then the state issues a birth certificate, and then that birth certificate is the document that you use to go get a driver's license, a passport, a social security card, a military card, all the rest of the kind of stuff. You need that foundational document in order to show up everywhere else. But that's not your identity. There's no biometric data on that birth certificate. There's no fingerprint. There's no DNA evidence. There's no picture on it. It's just a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper that was issued by the state. So the state created the piece of paper. The state owns the piece of paper, and all you can do is just appear as it, just like they say in the back of the driver's license application. But if you change your maker, you change your lawgiver. And if you change your lawgiver, well, then you've got a different God, if you will, then, that can rule over you. And that's how we subject ourselves to, Minnesota, Alaska, United States jurisdiction, because we've done it based on who we appear to be. And our real maker is over there going like, whoa, I am really pissed off at what you're doing. You're to keep my law, keep my commandments. And it's funny, if you look in the legal dictionary, the word attorn, A-T-T-O-R-N, which is short for attorney, just add E-Y, but attorn comes from the Latin attorne, and it basically means in its most simplistic sense is to turn. Well, if I were to turn from one father and now turn to the fatherland or motherland and say that I'm from that, I've just done a turn. I've turned from one Lord to a new Lord. And in the legal definition of a torn, it says, I'm probably not going to get this exactly right, but you can look it up in a Black's Law dictionary, a torn or a torment. It's to turn from one Lord to a new Lord upon the alienation of a state, of your estate, and you start to pay service and homage to the new Lord. And that's what an to attorn or an attornment is. And one who attorns or is done in attornment is an attorney. Because that means the state or act of turning. You've done a turn. You've turned away from your original maker. That's your sin of origin. And now you've moved to this new Father or Lord, if you will. So that's the last little piece of, I guess that I think that kind of covers that piece. But there's a lot there that we can go over.
There is a lot there. So when you go to court, John, they're asking you to attorn to a different maker, to a different set of rules, a different creator. And one of the things you had mentioned last week when we were talking is, you're now carrying around this new image. And, there's a really big thing that's been going on for at least a couple of years, where it's all about correcting your status. You're supposed to be a state national or an American national or a state citizen. There's all this stuff about correcting your status, and yet our Creator is very clear that He is the one that is the Creator. Our origin, our status is that of a man created in the image of the Almighty. And that's it. He's going to make the rules. He's going to judge. He's going to put the law on your heart. That's Jeremiah 31 to 34. And, the Spirit is going to, the instructor, God's Spirit, is going to give us the law. He's going to put it on our hearts. And so I don't know if you have anything else to say about that before you take questions, but that's probably the most important part for me. I have a problem with this whole changing of status thing, and going from being a U.S. citizen, which is one status, to a Minnesota national, which is another status. And I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I think it's we're being led down just a different rabbit hole to waste more time.
Yeah. So that's good. And that what I wanted to try and do, so we could go into that more, and maybe that's another call that we do, next week or the week after, if the folks want me to go more into that, because there is a lot there. But for hearing this for the first time, it's really, I want to get that, you can't get something out of nothing. Whatever, and that's if you can walk away with tonight's call going, okay, you can't get something out of nothing, so there has to be a first something in order to create something else, and that something else, if it makes it, well, it's the only one. It would just be right for it to rule over it. It wouldn't be right for anyone to rule over what somebody else made. So it's got the ability to rule over it, because it's got the ability to rule over it. It's got the ability to it's got the ability to make rules for it, make law for it. So whoever is your lawgiver is your maker. And whoever your maker is the only one that can actually give you law. So when you talk about correcting your status, the only way we do it here is we go into a fictional maker, and we can't really be of the fictional maker, but we can appear as it. We can pretend to be it, and that's how the court acquires jurisdiction over us, when we make a choice to attorn to the jurisdiction of the court, to go make an appearance and say, I'm that. When in actuality, we can just say, no, I'm only pretending to be that. So I'd like to maybe come back and hear, folks that have heard this for the first time tonight, to, hear what kind of questions we have, and take this all into consideration, what we've shared here so far tonight. So I'll open it up.
Okay, yes, let's do that. Go ahead and just speak up if you have questions.
So in the Bible, it talks about man and men. So God created man, but the wording they used. But then did the Jewish people, Hebrew people, create the word men?
I mean, I just understand it as a plural of man. I don't put too much, what I'm really trying to do here is just really understand, there's, I think it's in Timothy or something, it says, to understand the weightier matters of the law. And so I'm trying to get like this first principle of whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it. And so, Genesis 1:26, it says God created man in his image and likeness. And so, and he commands man, and he calls it male and female for man, mankind. I think the real concept here is, man has a maker. Man didn't just spontaneously exist. Something created man. And that first something would have to own man and could rule over man and could set whatever kind of rules it wanted man to do. So, question, I could go in court and I go like, who's your daddy? This John Myser that you're calling, who's the daddy of this John Myser? Because I'm aware there's 3 traits that are exactly the same because of the back of the driver's license application: name, birth date, address. But that still doesn't tell who made me. And the unique identifier on distinguishing me from anybody else is who made me and who made that fiction. Well, whoever made the fiction is whoever made, whatever state issued the birth certificate and, what mom or dad issued that child.
Oh, I get it. So what you're saying is that man is at the top or right under God on the top for our government.
Yep. And government to me is who's your God. Govern means to control, have authority to speak. So is your government God, or is your government a fiction of all of us appearing as one, creating something called America, or Minnesota, or Alaska, or Canada, or Japan? And now Japan, or America, is making rules over stuff it didn't make. America didn't make the land.
Your message is genius, bro. Your message is genius.
Well, the best part about it here is it's not mine. I got it out of the Bible. I'm just, finding a different way to share it, so it's not mine.
Amen.
No, the way you explained it, though.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I don't get the glory for this. The glory is His, and it's just trying to find a way to beat deception, because Satan is kind of known as the great deceiver. And all you have to do is just get a little, if you have a glass of water and you put and you're really thirsty, well, great, it'll quench your thirst. But if you get a drop of arsenic in there, you're not going to be able to tell or discern that. But it's polluted. And then you start to drink that and you go, oh, my God, I'm sick. Well, it's not till all of a sudden you get a mind that can start to discern again and start to pick it up. So the genius of the Scripture is it says like, oh, we have not been taught. It says, be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Well, I had to figure out how the serpent was thinking and what it was doing in its subtlety, its very subtle ways to actually deceive us. So in this way, it's like, oh, okay, I got it. It's, I'm making an appearance as something that I'm not. I'm pretending to be the son of the fatherland or motherland, and I'm not. But if it comes out of my mouth, and I walk into that judge in that courtroom, I go, hi, yeah, that's me. Well, now I've just, given them jurisdiction to tell me what to do, because that's a Minnesota judge or an Alaskan judge. That judge is just animating a fiction in the role of judge. And in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 33:22, it says, God is your king, your judge, and your lawgiver. Well, those are 3 aspects of the first something. Whatever you make, you own, you rule over. Well, if I'm the maker of it, I can certainly be the king of it. If I'm the maker of it, I certainly can make the rules. I can legislate for it. And if I'm the maker of it, I own it, I certainly can be the judge of what I want done. So the 3 aspects of this first something are king, judge, lawgiver. So I can just go change it to go like, who's your lawgiver? Is your God. Is Alaska your lawgiver? If Alaska is your lawgiver, well, then that's your God, small g.
That's amazing, because I didn't understand John Quaid until I listened to you.
You didn't
John Quaid. I didn't understand John Quaid until I listened to you. John Quaid didn't have a driver's license. He passed away like a couple years ago, but
it's John, you said in Isaiah, God said He is the judge, the lawgiver, and the enforcer.
King, legislator, judge. So king, executor, if you will, the executive branch, or king, judge, lawgiver, legislator.
So the people get together and become one, and they assume upon themselves those three branches of government that belong to God.
Right. And that's called a trespass. That's a big trespass. You're ruling over stuff you didn't make, and you have no authority to rule over, stuff you didn't make. So we're trying to rule over other men and women we didn't make. CPS, come in there, grab a child, all that kind of stuff, or you did a criminal act, or, this is how you do a marriage, or this is how you do, criminal law. Well, it's already all in there. It's all in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and Numbers about what we do and how we're supposed to do it. But, we've been deceived on that one, thinking, well, that's just moral law. That's spiritual law. Sorry, I think I beg to differ with you on that one. I think that is the law. That is our government. That's how we're supposed to do. We're supposed to apply judges and officers within our gates, and they're supposed to apply the Scripture to what goes on. So that's like the example I've given you before. Like if Gus came and, and I stole Gus's lawnmower, and, I took his lawnmower, Gus comes back and goes, hey, give it back. And if we can't settle it, well, then we go to a judge. And when we go to the judge, Gus will have his witnesses, and if the judge finds in there in Gus's favor, he then looks into the Scripture, which we're all supposed to know, and he goes, well, John, you've taken Gus's lawnmower, and the penalty is you got to give him back his lawnmower and give him a second lawnmower. And then all of a sudden we get to it, and I go like, wow, I don't even have Gus's lawnmower anymore. I pawned it. Oh, let's read here in the Scripture. If you don't have his original lawnmower, the penalty gets doubled. So now you own 4 lawnmowers. So the penalty, God doesn't get the lawnmowers. He doesn't need it. Not like how we do in the state, where the state gets a fine or state puts you in jail time. Gus gets the benefit. The one whose property you took. And that's just how law works in the kingdom of God. So if people go like, hey, where are you? I think I'm in the creation, aren't I? I mean, I don't know. Seems to me to start to make sense. Am I in Alaska? Am I in Minnesota? I don't know. 500 years ago, this place wasn't called Minnesota. I think it's more likelihood that I'm in the kingdom of the one that made it all. So again, I'm adding more, so I don't really want to do it. I want to leave it open for some questions again from what I have presented, because I'd like everybody to, as a beginning, to start to walk away with, that first something makes something else. You can't get something out of nothing, because that's foundational. And, when you begin to go read that book again, if you read the Bible again with that piece of knowledge, I'm going to tell you other concepts are going to start to jump out and make sense. Because without that underpinning of that concept, you get lost in it. But that concept is foundational. And then you start to go like, oh, I see what he's saying there. Oh, my God, I went to a different lawgiver. I didn't know that my country or my religion was against the law. So go ahead. Let's see if there's any other questions from what I've shared.
Go ahead if you have a question.
I have a comment. I don't know. Maybe it's a question. I don't want to make it real long, but where does this go? Because there's been a lot of examples of role playing, and I mean, you could practice all this stuff of what you should and should not say, but doesn't it seem like maybe we just need to get right with God? And then, because it does say also that some of us will be delivered up to the synagogues of Satan, and we have to let the Holy Spirit speak through us. But if we're thinking about what we're supposed to be saying, and we don't let the Holy Spirit speak through us, that is the unforgivable sin. That's the only time the unforgivable sin can be made. So, like, you know, I can get lost in the role playing, and I understand. I'm grasping it more and more each time about the fiction, and it's just been in me so long that it peels off. But what is, where is this going? I guess it's about getting right with God, getting my spirit straight, and then I won't have to worry about what I'm saying because it'll come to me.
Right. Well, I think, you've got a good brain, and it's a matter of starting to reprogram it to go like, oh, my God, I have, there's probably not enough time in this call, but it's like, how have I blown it on the first and second commandments out of the Mosaic 10? How did I blow the first one? And what is that second one, that's been hidden by the Catholic Church and buried, and then they take the 10th and split it into two? What's so important about that second one that, and how am I blowing that one? Because if we're breaking the law, there's a penalty, or otherwise it's not law. So, if I'm going to venture to say that if it's, the first and second commandments are ahead of adultery and ahead of killing and ahead of stealing and coveting. Well, what if I don't even know I'm breaking the first and second commandments? I've been doing that my whole life because I'm carrying on a driver's license. I'm following a different law. I'm trying to, do this other stuff, but I'm not even keeping the law. I didn't even know that I was breaking the law because I'm so deceived. So if I'm breaking the law and I don't even know it, that's the first part to go through. I can just tell you this: it takes a while before you go like, okay, what am I going to go do tomorrow? I want to go. How do I go file my taxes or my property taxes? Or I got a criminal case tomorrow. You know what? It's slow down. You don't want to get hurt. I mean, maybe just carry on with whatever you've been doing and try and just slow down that pain or that hurt of whatever it is. But start to get your mind right. Be not, conformed to this world, but transform your mind. Get this mind of Christ in you and begin to see it. It takes a while. And as Gus had said, when I first started trying to talk to him about this, is I thought I knew it pretty well in 2016. I can tell you this 3 years later, I go like, holy cow. I thought I understood it back then. I still didn't know it the way that I know it today. And I'm still seeing more of it, because I'm just pulling out programming in my head. So I can actually begin to see the reality of the situation. So that's kind of what my journey's really been. I'm just kind of really sharing my journey going like, it's been, this has been the hardest work I've ever done, but it's also been the most rewarding because all of a sudden I'm starting to see things and reprogram my brain. And I had a very malprogrammed brain. I didn't know it. But I finally just took it as like, okay, well, it throughout the scripture, it just says you're deceived, you're fooled, you're asleep, you're not awake, you're confused, stumbling block. All those things are just signs of like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. And then he uses the term return to me. Return to me. I didn't know I did an atonement, a turn away from him. So how do I turn back? How do I even know that I'm supposed to turn back when I didn't even know I did a turn away? I go, holy cow, I didn't know I turned away because I thought I was going to church. I thought it was like, oh, hey, there's a God. What's going on? And he's like, well, who's my lawgiver? Well, Minnesota. I've been keeping Minnesota law. I've been keeping United States law. Who do I fear more? I fear the IRS more than I fear God. He says the beginning of wisdom is to fear me. That's kind of strange, God, because I really fear the IRS. Or I fear the judge in a criminal court. Or a divorce court. So how do all of a sudden do I really begin to go like fear him and go like, oh, what do I need to do? What do I? And yeah, he tells us we may get persecuted along the way, but it's like How do I begin to see what's really going on? And that's why I wanted to start, again, I'm just going back to it again because it's, to me, the big takeaway from tonight's call, if you take this, is you can't get something out of nothing. So there had to be a first something. So now you can have an argument. Now you can handle an atheist really quite easy. I can prove there's a God. I don't know much else about it, but I can definitely prove there's a first something. Because you over there, Mr. Atheist, you didn't just spontaneously exist. Okay, good, go call it a Big Bang. I don't care what it is. Whatever we get to, there had to be a first something. So I may just put the term God to it. You may put the term Big Bang to it. Great. So I can prove that there had to be a first something that always was, Alpha, Omega, the beginning, the end, that always will be, that always has been, that has no beginning and has no end. Because that first something had to make everything else. And that we can see in reality. That's self-evident. We can see by the creation that there's something, he says in the scripture somewhere, the invisible things are proven by the things that are visible. So I don't know a lot about God, except that I know that I can tell there must be something because of what I see in the creation. So there's a first something. That first something made all the other somethings. And now see how simple that is? First something made all the other somethings. How can somebody begin to argue with you on that? But now I've got a very strong cement, granite foundation on which to start building some other principles. Well, whoever makes it owns it, rules over it. Oh, whatever it makes, whatever a maker makes, it's going to look like the thing that is made looks like the maker. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go buy I want to go buy a puppy from this breeder over here. Well, can I see what the parents look like? Because I'd like to know what the puppy's going to look like when it grows up. That principle is in there. Oh, whatever it makes, it looks like it. So who do you look like? Do you look like an American? Or do you look like the Creator or your mom and dad? I'll pause again. See if there's any comments or questions, because it seems I don't know if that helped with the comment that the woman just shared there, but if that helped a little bit or not, but whatever, I'm open for anything else.
I think. Go ahead, April. I just wanted to after you are finished. I think Glenn has a few questions, but go ahead.
I can help with the Bible. In Romans 14, it says, to a man that eats meat, that he believes it's sin, to him it's sin. To a man that believes eating meat is not a sin, but God judges the heart, not the outward appearance. Is that like a contract?
I'd have to read the whole thing in context, to see that whole piece of it. It's kind of hard for me just to pick off that one piece. Is your name Glenn? I'd have to look at the whole piece. No,
he was talking to the Jews eating pork and the Gentiles eating pork.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is your name, caller? What's the caller's name?
Jeremy.
Aaron?
Jeremy.
Say it again. Karen?
Jeremy.
Say it.
Jeremy, what I heard.
Jeremy.
Okay, thank you. Jeremiah. Got it. Go ahead.
No, so all I understand, Jeremy, I'd have to go through and read the whole piece of that scripture there in Romans that you're referring to. I know that I believe it's in Leviticus, that he puts, sort of like it's our FDA, CDC, what are the food laws, what you're to eat, what you're not to eat. And, the Creator's pretty specific about, if it's got fins and scales, you can eat it in the water. If it's got a cloven hoof and it chews the cud, you can eat it. If it doesn't, then don't eat it. He doesn't go in there, is it a salmon? Is it a walleye? Can you eat a salmon or walleye? Well, he just says fins and, scales and fins. Okay, great. Choose the cud. Cloven hoof. Okay, well, a pig, he's got a cloven hoof, but it doesn't chew the cud. Okay, no pork.
The only reason I asked that question is because the word man and men men, it was okay for them because of Christ, to, saved us. And that's my belief that Paul was saying, is that as a man believe, then that's what God judges you by. It's the heart, not the outward appearance. If you believe you're sinning or you're going to sin, then that's what just man and men. That was really the question.
Yeah, I don't think that matters, Jeremy. It's what really, again, is let's go back to that first principle. Whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it. Doesn't say anything there about belief. It doesn't say that.
No, if you believe in something, then you made it.
Can I finish? Let me just finish here. So if I am the maker and I created something in the made, so the creator is talking to the creation and it's saying, I don't want you to touch this. So the creation can't go, yeah, but I believe this different. No, that doesn't follow the logic of law. Because then in that case, then it's just chaos. Then there is no law. Then it's just belief.
Isn't that kind of what we have? We have that now. That's what we live in because our laws have been taken away from us.
Can you hold on, April?
Sure. I'm sorry.
I want to get to more questions if there are some. And go ahead, Gus.
As far as belief goes, there's the first and second commandment. Okay, you shall have no other gods before me. Whether you believe it or not, that's still a commandment. That's still the law. So there's the law is the law, whether you believe it or not. And there's a big difference between commandments and statutes and tradition. So I'm not going to address any of that, but just give that some thought. I'd rather have John answer.
Okay, I heard it. I'll see if it, if we were to go back to if we took Isaiah, that part 33:22, where he says, I am your king, your judge, and your lawgiver. Now we go back to that first commandment. I am the Lord your God that took you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. Okay, now let's just go change out the word God and put lawgiver in there. I am the lawgiver, your Lord, that took you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other lawgivers before me. So I would venture to say that the Egyptians were following Egyptian law. But God's right there commanding them, going, look, you're going to go into the house of bondage. So don't follow that law. And then he says in Leviticus 1, I think it's 18:1, I took you out of these, different countries. You shall not obey their laws. You shall not obey their statutes. You shall not do that. So he's saying really clearly, I made you. I am your God. You are my people. Keep my commandments. Keep my commandments. So he's right there stating really clearly, I am your God. You are my people. And throughout in the New Testament, it says it all throughout the New Testament. Again, keep the commandments. If you know me, you'll keep my commandments. If you knew my Father, you would love him and keep his commandments. And people just think I'm giving you a reason of why you keep the commandments. And why is that? Whoever makes it, owns it, rules over it. And if somebody else attempts to rule over something they didn't make, well, that's just not right. It's unrighteous. It's an iniquity. It's a trespass. So that's why I want to get that first foundational building block down of you can't get something out of nothing, because then you can start to go after these people that start to say, well, no, the law has been done away with. I don't think so. That's the way that we get through, that we get lost in the whole piece, is we think the law has been done away with. So just love your brother. No, first part of that thing is you are to love the Lord your God. And if you love God, well, then you're going to keep his commandments. That's the first great law. And he said on that, then the second one's love your neighbor as yourself. And he said on those two things, hang all the law. Well, you can go through the whole 10 commandments and go, yeah, that makes sense. Because if I love Dad, I'm going to keep his commandments. But
and it was the Apostle Paul. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
And it was the Apostle Paul who said the law is none effect. Jesus never said that.
Right. Right.
Hey, John, the lady that was on had asked about practical application of what you're talking about. And I know you had some recent experiences with getting some stuff dismissed, some stuff reduced, and otherwise, I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, the practical application of this information and how to use it.
Well, I can, but before I jump into that, and I can go back into that, people would like, and definitely thanks, Gus. I just want to make sure. I just want to kind of make sure, see if people, on this first part here, because I don't want to overload folks, because this first part is, I'm just trying to stress again how important it is to get that first part. The first something had to be a first something. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm repeating myself on purpose because it took me a long time to really start to dial it into my head. And I think when I first started talking to Gus in 2016, when I thought I had it, I think I tried to overload him with too much stuff. And I said, look, this is the first concept, because now you can go look at everything else and start to take it apart with this foundational stone in your pocket. You can begin to take it. Then if you have it, then as Gus was just asking me to, is to go into the practical application part. I can just go to a judge and go, that John Myser that you're calling, sir, did you make him? Did Minnesota make him? Because if Minnesota didn't make him, then how are you making him do something? Because that would be a trespass. I mean, see, then I can actually tell you more specific things I'm beginning to do with it on there. But it's like, first of all, I want to get a sense of, questions related to what I've shared so far. And if you want, I'll jump a little bit more into that next piece that Gus shared. But I'm just looking for people's reactions to what I've shared here tonight and how that resonates or doesn't resonate, so I can understand how clearly I'm explaining myself and successful it is to get it with folks who are hearing this for the first time.
John, I think you're exactly right. Let's. It seems like you're just laying down like you said, the foundation, and let's take questions and comments regarding what you've said so far and what you've laid down tonight. And then, I think if you are willing to come back another time, come back at your discretion. You're ready to share more. So anyway, just if we can have some more questions or comments on what he's shared so far, that would be
Sean
be
here in Anchorage.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, you're the messenger, man. That's for sure. That was like totally clear and concise and easy to understand and simple for me to wrap my noggin around. Probably because I've been studying the jurisdictions for a long time, but no, that just made perfect sense to me. Thank you very much.
All right.
Hey, John. John, this is Chris. I kind of want to say the same thing. Your testimony rings as true as I've ever heard. And, man, you're blessed, brother. And I really appreciate you coming on our show. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and John, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, but talk more about representing oneself versus presenting oneself, under duress with a bill for the use of your property during the time that you're appearing or present they want you to represent You know how much it's going to cost for me to represent myself? They can't afford it.
Well, you can't represent yourself. It's impossible.
It's impossible. They can't pay the bill either. So, presenting under duress, threat, and coercion with a bill versus, the other thing.
Yeah. If you saw Jesus always said, I am representing myself as my Father. And that's a true statement. He's appearing for and on behalf of, and he's doing his Father's will. So when we get that understanding, we get the mind of Christ in us in that way, we then begin to go, oh, I need to start to model myself after how Jesus acted and behaved. Because he's over there doing that. So he represented himself as his Father. He kept his Father's will. He didn't do his will. So you can't represent yourself as yourself, because that doesn't make sense. That's just, that's the crazy stuff that the Lord get us to try and do, where they tangle us up with words. And I
right. And I would just say that the word representing is tangled up in a lot of stuff. I think Christ was presenting himself as the Son of his Father. Presenting.
Well, he knew who he was.
He couldn't represent himself because he couldn't do that. So he just did what he could.
But he could represent himself.
Let us know the wisdom of your heart, that you belong, that we belong to you, that you belong to us, and that our love is all untrue. Take that first step and commit to take a chance. Believe, just relax, 'cause no one ever died of trying to take the music back. Just leave it to them others to excuse. Well, state your heart, be yourself. Help us understand it's you and everybody else. I'll take a breath and I'll see it through. You know that I am more myself when I'm standing up for you. Is it that we don't see the pain which we exchange for circumstance made easy to believe in, where everybody's loss becomes a gain? Come forth, reach out your hand, be your brother's keeper this one time. Say he belongs, say we belong to him, that he belongs to us, and that our love is all and true.